All right, so welcome to another episode of the Deals for Dentists podcast. And today from Huntington Beach, California. That sounds so nice right now because it was freezing here this morning and outside of Boston. It was actually snowing, and I'm not mentally ready for that. So we have Tiffany Nguyen, MBA, right? And Kimberly Nguyen, DDS.
Yes.
Did I say your last names right?
You did, yes.
Very well done.
I'm not just a pretty face. I did my research. Yeah. So, all right, we got off to a good start there. So they are from Asprodental, and it is a cloud-based practice management software program. If you go to Deals for Dentists, you'll get a deal of 30% off implementation fees, 2 months of free subscription, and unlimited on-demand support. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your journey and all about Asprodental.
All right. So I guess the journey starts when Kimberly and I were working together. This was back in, I want to say like 2015. So at the time, we were growing the practices, really filling out the days, bringing on more doctors. It was a huge running hustle and bustle machine. And once we tapped out the capacity, we started to think, okay, what else can we do aside from like renovate and bring in more rooms? What else can we do to attract, more patients, to make everything run more smoothly in the office? And so the first thing that we looked at was the practice management software.
We wanted to upgrade because we wanted a cloud system. We actually wanted to go cloud, believe it or not, more than a decade ago, because with 2 locations, it was much easier for us and our team to be able to access all the information. And so that started our search. That started our quest.
It was funny because Kimberly I think she had been looking at practice management software to switch because at that time, she had been using the same practice management software in her practice for I think like 15 years.
Yeah, for a long time. So server-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you first opened the practice, it was the most advanced one at the time, but that was 15 years ago. And when you're using the same thing for over a decade, it gets a little bit clunky. So she was telling me how we should go cloud, and that last time she tried this search was at a convention 10 years ago, when she went up to, the big practice management software companies, and she would ask them like, oh, do you have a cloud version in the works? And at this point, I mean, like, people were kind of just getting used to cloud storage of any sort. Like, people didn't really
I think they
trust
looked
it.
at me and thought I was crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because back then there wasn't something that was available. But moving it forward, we really just wanted to be able to switch to something. And we thought there has to be something out there by now. And we did.
So we did about a demo a month. Yeah, we did. I think it's called market research in retrospect, but at the time we were just demoing it. So we did month after month, and 6 months into that demo year, we started. Yeah,
and it became a joke. I mean, we would just kind of look at each other like, we can do this.
We could do this. If we were to do it, we would do it like this and this, and it was total joke. But then as we did 3 more months of demos, we started to seriously look at each other and say, okay,
we're doing this.
Maybe we should actually do this, and how do we make it happen? And we went out and had our tech team put together by a good friend and colleague who his whole entire career has been based in tech and the startup scene. So sold multiple companies to Facebook, launched Facebook for Android, did a lot of cool things. And at this time, we caught him at a very good moment because he had just sold his latest company, an AI one, to Facebook, and he was advising. So we got someone who's been a tech entrepreneur, a veteran, who's just kind of bored and wants inspiration, helping us launch this new products that we were putting together.
And how long has Asprodental been out? When did you first start it?
2017.
Okay, so 2017. So you were both practicing in the same office. Kimberly, you're a dentist, and Tiffany, you're running.
Yeah, so we still have the practices and have other dentists at the office.
They run themselves by now, so it's really nice.
but that's how you met. You were
Yes.
working in the same office.
Yeah.
He's the clinician and I did the business end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That's like you see, the MBA and the DDS, so that works.
Yeah. Perfect combo. So now, Tiffany, you're an MBA. Did that like totally change your way that you look at the world becoming an MBA? Because like,
Like corporate and boring now, is that what you're asking?
No, like, do you actually like when you walk into a restaurant, like I see food and do you see like supplies and overhead and how efficiency of how the workflow is and kind of analyze everything like that?
Actually, for right now, for restaurants, it's funny that you say that because everyone has limited seating, much more limited, right? So the big question for restaurants is actually a very similar one to the dental practice, but if you only have a certain number of chairs, how do you increase the check size per table, right? Because you only have so many reservations to give out. And if it's first come, first serve, how do you release the first tables to a subset that would likely pay more to be there? But anyway, yeah, the MBA does kind of change my perspective.
See, I would just look at the beer menu. I wouldn't even notice all that stuff.
The other good thing about being the MBA is when we did the software, that was another thing that Tiffany brought to the whole software where people can actually see it, right? They can see the feedback. So the team has the information. So what, the analytics, if you will, now the team has that information right in front of them and it's real live time. So whatever the number for an office goal might be.
Yeah, for the practice goal.
So she would pull that into that. So let's say that office goal is 5,000 a day or 10,000 a day, where the team can see exactly what happens when there are changes in the schedule.
So what Kimberly's saying is, those production collections goals that you have for the practice? If you're running your dental practice like a business, like any typical other business, the goals would be at the forefront. Morning huddles, you would talk about your production goals, how you can meet them and whatnot. But for most practices and a lot of clients that we speak with, their goals are discussed, but not kind of at the forefront in a casual way like that. So it's, it's a known practice that if you think about something and track about something, just having it there in your mind makes you more likely to meet that goal because you're thinking on some level. We're not like going out and asking people to overbook or anything like that, but just if you kind of have it in the back of your mind, then you can say like, oh, I'm short from goal by a few $100s. Let's try to see if this patient wants fluoride. And like the next, just little things here and there.
And for the young dentists, that's really important because now they have a scoreboard, right? They have a scoreboard. They know how they are doing. And especially a young dentist coming in, and if they have their practice, we were talking about overhead. That's important to them. Like what do I need to do? But also if they're in the back doing the dentistry, wouldn't it be nice if the front team were also very aware? It's not, you don't have to wait till the end of the day to see what your scores are. You have,
it's like a game.
So
real time.
Yeah, it's real time. It's more fun. And let's say, for instance, too, they can also help patients because the team now is very aware of everything that's going on without like, okay, how did we do? What do we need to do? Do we have to look forward to this and this? Now the scores are there. And at the end of the day, if they meet their goals that they set out for themselves, I'll actually say, you had go. And and so it makes it fun.
There's like little confetti that goes down if you meet your goals for production and collections. It's there in a non-intrusive way. It's not like annoying and it'll get in the way, but it's definitely there just kind of in the back of the program where if you glance at it, you'll see the numbers and it'll be on your mind.
And we want it to get powerful, but fun at the same time and not like make work like, oh my gosh, I'm going to work, but rather than, hey, I get feedback and I feel accomplished.
Yeah.
So
it's nice to know that you're on the right track.
So within your platform, you can set goals and certain key performance indicators. And do you have like a nice dashboard where you can track all this? I'm a sucker for a nice dashboard, so I love a dashboard.
So are we.
But I like how you are making it fun because a lot of this is staff onboarding. Getting the staff on board with reaching these goals is just as important as the clinician. So if you can get the staff on board with the reason why we're checking, treatment plan acceptance rate or reappointment rate, or like you said, how many fluoride treatments we're doing, and then kind of make it, fun for them when we do reach the goals. Then it will be, like you said, in the back of their mind, and they will try to reach those goals.
They'll be more engaged.
More engaged. And so when I think staff onboarding is so important. So have you made that like a kind of a priority of your platform, and making these goals fun?
So staff onboarding, to be able to use Asprodental, it's very, very quick. And I'll use an example. So amongst our client is a dental company that does mobile clinics every month or so, pre-COVID, of course.
We stress test how easy it was, because we figured, okay, it's one thing to say it's super easy to learn and use, but what does that really mean? You hear it so much. It's one of those things that's gotten really saturated. So one of our clients, the one that does the mobile clinics.
So they're volunteers. So these people are non-dental people. They show up, some of them, right? Because they want to go into dentistry.
You have your dentist and your hygienist who
and
do
your assistants,
right? But then a lot of the volunteers might just be students or pre-dental
who want to go into dentistry, right? So then they come in and they have no idea. They don't know what 3MOB is. They have no idea what any of the surfaces. So they need to be able to learn this very, very quickly. And within 5 to 10 minutes, we can show them how to use it, and they're up and going. So we think that's wonderful.
And even the doctors, though, I mean, they're so busy and they're volunteering for these dental events on their weekends. So it's not like they're going to come in an hour earlier or a few days earlier to do a training session on how to use the software. They show up like 15 minutes before the first patient, and we have to get the docs up and running with, here's how you put your clinical note, here's how you verify this is the treatment you did, and look at your x-rays and stuff, and we're able to get them up and going in that quarter of an hour.
And you know how you were saying you love the dashboard, us too. We don't even, our dashboard idea is not just in the KPIs that you're talking about.
No, that's a good point, because when you think dashboard, you think the business metrics, right? Like how are we doing on collections and whatnot. But what about like for the clinicians, what would you consider a clinical dashboard?
Yeah, I would want to see, how I'm doing with, my treatment acceptance rate, what procedures I've done, what patients, reappointed, all those types of KPIs.
Right. And how about, let's say, for instance, the usual hygiene checks, right? You go in, and most dentists, when they do a hygiene check, they have anywhere, probably for most dentists, anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. And so when you go in there, here's your hygienist, right? But really, because that dentist just numb a patient, right? So now they're going in to do a hygiene, and sometimes you have one, but sometimes you have 2 or more in an hour. So you know that as a dentist, you have to go in and do it really, really well. Well, you need a dashboard that within that basically 5 to 10 minutes,
dashboard.
You can see everything, right? And I think most dentists would want to see the perio chart. They would want to see as far as the teeth. They would want to see as far as the treatment plan and the priority of that treatment plan. What was on it and what wasn't done? What are we watching, and is it priority 1, 2, or 3? We would want to see our treatment notes. We would want to see all of that. And we want to be able to see it just like that without like switching back and forth.
So you've counted 4 things: perio,
charting,
tooth chart, the treatment plans, and clinical notes, the 4 things.
Yes, and even x-rays, right? So we want to be able to see all of that without clicking, which is what we were
I think she's traumatized from so when there were
frustrated,
when there were paper charts, right? There would be 4 physical different pages for your perio, a different whole other page for the treatment plan, and then another one for your clinical notes. And then the first generation of practice management software.
Yeah, but it didn't get better, right?
Yeah, the legacy versions that we all started with 15 years ago, right?
Or more.
Basically took that paper format and put it on a computer. So there was one page for Perio, one page, and it's like flipping between different tabs on your browser. So what
I'm embarrassed to say that so my practice has been around since 1974. I haven't been there that long, but so we actually
we're totally impressed.
It's just my Noxema cream. So we actually started with a DOS system that looked like Atari ping pong. It didn't even have a mouse, and that was till about 2012. It was called Dentech. And it was embarrassing.
2012.
Yeah, and then we switched. So then we switched to Dentrix, and because we worked with Shine, they were our supplier. We didn't really know any better, and they kind of came in and set us up with all the software, the hardware, the maintenance, the DEXA sensors, and before you know it, I don't even know how much we paid, and we're locked in for for yearly contracts. But I look at Dentrix, and it's like I'm studying the Torah to try to figure out how to get from A to. You can't go from A to B. You got to go from A to Z and then back to B. There's 27 different ways to go and do the same thing. And you're constantly clicking around, and it's can be very overwhelming. So I think what your software or your platforms is more just kind of simplifying it and making it more user friendly and intuitive. Is that right?
Yes, and I'm so glad you said that. We're super glad you said that, because it was intentional to make it very clean looking, very crisp, and at the same time very powerful with all the information right there. And your frustration, Eric, was mine, still is for a lot of dentists out there, is really within that amount of time for the hygiene check, do we really need to do all that click just to get the information, right? It should just be all there. And we can look at it, we can really spend that time taking care of the patients and really talking about, hi, how are you? Especially with generations worth, right? Because sometimes you have multiple generations in the office. We wanted something extremely efficient, not frustrating. And on top of all that, this is when you say you go back to the 70s, how about a search feature? Not just with teeth and not with just dates, but how about a search feature in the software where if a patient said, I went to Mary's wedding in Paris, but on an almond.
Can you search through your notes? Yeah, the way that you search through your email. But I think what Eric said about going from Z back to B and all that is really interesting, because the way that you're describing is how technology works today, right? Whereas Eric, when you're saying Dentrix, you have to go from back and forth and back and forth. I mean, it's a super robust system, right? It does a lot, it's powerful, but it's built in a modular way because that's just how technology was back then. I mean, we didn't have the resources and the know-how to do it any differently, right?
Yep.
But now in today's world, if you're creating something from scratch and you're building it based off of how we work today, it's completely different, right? Yep. That search feature that Kimberly was talking about, your phone, your email, pretty much anything you can search for words in a text message, right? From 2 months ago, reference back to something. But we can't do that in our clinical notes. I mean, we can, but we're really
we're proud to say that we're the only one that can.
But for a really long time, it's only you can sort by date, you can sort by tooth number, but you can't search through it the way that you do in your email, which we totally take for granted. And then with the simplification thing that you were talking about, I mean, if you look at your phone, right, it's very, very simple to use. We have clients and patients and friends and family who are in their 60s who can use their phones a lot better than any computer. Because it's easy.
It's intuitive, yeah.
Yeah, but actually, if we take a minute to appreciate smartphones, the amount of computing power in these things, at one point, take it back a few decades, it would have taken up a small room, And just because it fits in the palm of your hand, just because you can do things with very few clicks and it's on the surface very simple, that's because it's smart enough to be able to hide the complexities under the hood. I think if you have really good design, that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, it's just very clean, modern, crisp. And so that's how we want to make sure. So there's not a lot of information that clutters it. So as a clinician, if somebody's going in to do that hygiene check, or as an assistant to put the treatment in, they're not looking at all these things that would just clutter the workflow, but to make it where it is a nice, smooth process, because it's not something that's antiquated from way back.
You should have seen me the other day. I was trying to find in Dentrix. I was trying to find a patient's husband's to see if chart to see if they had scheduled that implant with me, and I couldn't find their next visit, the appointment. And I've used it since 2012. And I was looking at it like, where's Waldo? Where's the, where's the button? Because it's so crowded with unused functionality and buttons. It can be very overwhelming. Also, you should have seen when we went from that DOS system to Dentrix, after the first training session, there was staff members crying, like holding each other because they were so nervous about, like, we're going to get through this together. The people fear change, and when you're practice management software, it's kind of a big deal to switch, because that's the heart and soul of the practice. So how is the transfer? Let's say, my practice has been a long-standing practice. We have, 9 operatories, 4,500 patients. Number one, what's the data transfer like? Two, am I going to fear that I'm going to lose any data? And number two, what is the staff onboarding process like to get them comfortable with that with your software?
So data conversion is really neat because as long as it's there, the data is there, you'll be able to find it somehow. It's just a matter of like figuring out where it is, where it lives, right? So let's say in Dentrix, box A. So if you think of a practice management software, what you interact with is not what the computer does. In the background, the computer sees like a gigantic Excel spreadsheet is the best way to describe it. So box A in Dentrix might be the patient's first name. And then in Asprodental, it might be called box 12. So we just need to figure out the names, or like where things should link up, and then flow the information through. It's more of the case where different practices will use certain fields for things that may be specific to their office. And that's a process of figuring out, okay, like what do you type in here that should go into our system? So there's no loss of data because your data is,
is your data.
It's physically there. It's just a matter of figuring out where to link it up and which box to put it in.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about if I was to switch from, from Dentrix to Asprodental. Is it Asprodent or Asprodental?
Asprodental.
Asprodental.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not butchering the name of the company. Because I'm so used to cloud. I do all my banking through my phone. I have my Netflix account, my Amazon account. Those are all cloud. So I'm not so much concerned about that and the loss of data. What about, let's say my office, we purchased your platform, we transferred all the data. How do you help the staff onboard them so they're, all in and they're getting the training that they need?
Yeah, so we do multi-phase training. We do groups of front office, back office have their own separate trainings, and then we do the whole office all together, things that everyone will need to know. So for example, the clinical training will be like how to take an X-ray, how to renumber a tooth on an X-ray, how to add treatments to different priorities and write clinical notes. For the admin team, the front office, things like scheduling appointments, tracking missed and rescheduled appointments, setting the office goals, running the reports. And then things for everyone to know are, we think, basic scheduling. The whole team should know, because even if the team is very distinct and they're not meant to be cross-trained, in some offices they aren't, but it's still very helpful. We give the front and back teams a little bit of an overview of what the others do. So at least the front office knows what the chart page is and where to find information in the notes if they need to, and things like that. And then we also recognize that you can train in theory and give people homework to practice as much as you want, but nothing compares to when a live patient is there and you're running an actual day. So we prepare and set the team up for success to the best of everyone's ability. But when it comes down to it, we have, for the first 2 weeks of going live, we have one of our team members on call for that practice, so that they can call with an immediate question like, hey, I knew we did this in training, but how do you change the patient's last name? Like, we mistyped it. So, something like that.
Yeah, we think it's really, really important, because like you were saying at the beginning, that's where people, one, it's new. A lot of people, change is very difficult for them. We definitely have to be there for them. And we think that's crucial. In order to make anybody successful with this, is the experience at the beginning. And I think when people feel like there's somebody there,
the psychology of feeling like you are supported, right? That you're not just dropped into
you're not doing this alone. There's always somebody there. We're just a phone call away, a text away, or even if people want to look it up, they can actually look it up for something. Let's say if they're at home and they're like, oh, let me just look it up.
Yeah, so we have online tutorials and stuff, right? So they can, if it's a question that they want to reference real quick, they can. But our support is by call, text, and we can remote in, but we can also do like a quick video call if someone wants to, get on a Hangouts link or a FaceTime or something like that.
That's one of the benefits of cloud-based too, is that you can easily tap right in and kind of log in remotely, as opposed to an in-house server.
Yes.
How long does the actual data transfer take? Is that a matter of hours or days?
From a legacy system?
Yep.
I'd say it takes a few weeks, because first we want to make sure the linkages are, connecting the boxes correctly. And then we would do a test conversion and work with the practice to make sure, like, okay, these are the standard where things should go, but do you use things in a slightly different way than the standard way? And we want to make sure that the data displays the way that your practice is run. But that entire time, you're still using the old system in your practice. So you're still creating new data, making new appointments, new patients and whatnot, without any downtime. And once we figure out, once we get the connection really flush, then we take the latest copy of your data and we can run it through overnight.
So do you think from start to finish, from the time that, you sign the contract to the time you go live is a few weeks?
Yeah, I'd say 3 to 4.
And so you said that, you have 2 weeks of someone on call, for that first 2 weeks. What about after? So you said you can text or email. You have the online support. Is support ongoing?
Support
is that all included?
Yeah, it's all included. The only difference between, the first 2 weeks is we have our team member just not like literally sitting there waiting for a call, but very much on call, specifically checking in on the practice. Like at the end of the day, hey, we didn't hear from you today. How is it going? After those 2 weeks, we're still there, but we found that a lot of practices are humming along really well. And that if we ask them how it's going, they're like, it's going fine. Can you stop bugging us? So we let people live.
It sounded like your classic treatment chart page is including the perio, the restorative, the x-rays, everything's right on there. What are some of the other key functionalities that your platform has to offer that is, a step up from like one of the older Dentrix or older platforms?
I think one of the things is, we were talking about value, especially to a new dentist, right? So if, let's say, Eric, if you and I were the new dentist today coming in, and we just bought an office, right? And it's server-based, and we wanted to send text messages. Well, we would need to go out and buy something that sends text message, right? And then
Like a separate program?
Yes, like a separate program.
So now you have to log into a different platform to send out your messages.
Right. And then let's say, for instance, if we decide we want to be able to send health history
or consents,
we would have to buy a different package from another vendor. So now all these layering on. So by the time you layer all that on, that becomes quite costly.
It adds up because you're paying for this guy and this one and that one.
Oh, that's us right now. I have third-party softwares up the wazoo. I don't even know what half of them do, and they probably do the same thing. And
Eric, that's the thing. A lot of them overlap because if all your company does is electronic consents, then eventually you might go, oh, okay, well maybe we should now do reminders too. But you have a company that only does reminders, but they also do texting. So now you have to you get two vendors that kind of overlap, but you're still paying both of them because you want this tiny module and that tiny module.
And then everybody's going into your server to be able to enter the information, right? So as much of frustration is for the dentist in the back when we have to do multiple clicks, right? The same frustration happens up in the front office ladies because they're going from the software, whatever it may be, to going to, let's say, for instance, a third party, to be able to read the text, to be able to read whatever it is that the patient is sending back. So what we did was we added a lot of that right into Asprodental. And so, for example, the health history, if you wanted, especially during this COVID time, the health history, a new patient comes on, we can send a health history, they can fill it out in the comfort of their home, then send it back. It's auto-populated into the software, so the team doesn't really have to do anything.
You can also do a COVID screening. So along with the health history, you can add one of those COVID screenings and also any other consent forms too.
Yes. And then let's say, for instance, they come in and now you have a treatment plan for them. So let's say we're in a hurry and they cannot stay. Well, you can certainly send that treatment plan to them and they can sign it. So all the consents and all the financials are signed even before they come in. So that helps with, especially during this COVID time. You don't want patients coming in. You don't want them to have to, pick up the pen or sign on the computer.
You know what's funny?
All of that is done. So all that layering, it's as much as we can, we put it into Asprodental because now we created value for the dentist. Especially
so is all of that in like a portal for the patient where
they don't have to log into anything because think about it. If you are the patient, right, do you want one more password to remember, one more thing to log into? Probably not. So we send it out as to your email with a link. It's a secure link and you can fill it all out and it goes directly back into the practice management software without you having to sign into it or download anything extra as the patient.
And then the other thing I want to mention is the text. And the text is really important, not just from a point of easier patient communication, right? That we all know. But years ago, long ago.
In her past life, she was an auditor.
I was a dental auditor. So at the beginning of my career, I got a chance to Orange County, Los Angeles County, and San Diego County were my territories. So I was in, at least a dozen offices as far as every few weeks. And when we do this, dentists are wonderful as clinicians, but sometimes we're not as great as far as being good about notes. Okay. Same thing with the front team. Now, the beauty about the text messages is everything in the text message, it's saved. It also has basically notes, right? So if something funny should happen. So there was a client who the husband said, I don't have any pain anymore. Cancel my appointment. And the wife, basically said, cancel my husband's appointment. It was a prepaid appointment. So that office refunded the money for the dental work and they went away. And all of a sudden this office gets a letter from the board. And basically they're trying to figure out if this office really didn't do something they were supposed to do. Well, the beauty about it is it's in there. It's in the text that the wife canceled the appointment because my husband is no longer in pain and the office refunded the money. So easily enough, send this out to the board, everything disappears. So this is something, especially for young dentists as they're beginning their career, is we got to make sure that we protect the dentist and their team. This is huge for us. And being an auditor, this is something where I know, and you know, that most dentists really try to do the right thing, right? Really, really try to do the right thing. And then on the other hand, though, sometimes we spend so much time with patients, you can't dot all the I's and you can't cross all the T's. So it's just one more thing that we built in to make sure that we protect the dentist. So that is something that we think that's very important in there.
So all those text messages and emails go into the notes as a paper trail, so you have a record of it. Now, what about communication? So can we text the patient back or email the patient back? Can you make appointments through text or email?
So right now we have the patients you can text out to your patient, like, how are you doing after a procedure? And they can answer you, letting you know, if they're still numb or if they want to make another post-op appointment, things like that. They can send in pictures. So let's say patient fell and cracked a tooth, they can snap a photo and send it to you. That way you can triage before they come in. That picture goes into their documents tab on the chart, so that you have it for reference for the future. And so that communication we see a ton of, especially right now. And then for the online booking, that's something that we're working on as well. So it's in our pipeline, and we're really excited. We have the design mock-ups, and we're hoping to have that out within early next year.
And is the messaging back, is that all HIPAA compliant? Through, like, if say a patient it's almost like a little teledentistry, like they take a picture of their tooth, and they text it to the office, and I can see it goes right to their chart, and then I can either call the patient or text them back. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's very important to us, the whole thing that you said about HIPAA compliant, because when we were doing our search to be able to switch to cloud, what we have found was some weren't. And that was a big, so that's like right off the bat, that was that was a deal breaker, right? So yes, absolutely, it must be HIPAA compliant.
What about communication within the office? Is there a way for me to communicate with the staff? Can they communicate with me? Like the assistant can ping me that the patient's here, or is there any intra-office communication that the platform offers?
Right now, if we can do it by a way of texting, right? So if, let's say, for instance, if you're back there and you're wearing your smartphone, and then the team sends you a text, so absolutely that can be done. So it's something where, and some will use it and some won't, but if you wanted to do it that way. And then for one client in particular that I'm thinking of, they have different locations. So what they will do is they will communicate with their other location via text right on the system, right? Without having to pick up the phone. And let's say, for instance, they might say, let's say they sent one patient for a root canal to one location, but that patient belongs to location in Boston, the other one with a different city. Then they can be able to communicate like that. So we've seen our clients do that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't even like talking on the phone. I'd rather text.
Yes.
And if someone is calling me, usually it's spam. So I would rather text. And the studies show that people will respond to a text more than a phone call, and even an email. And it's that's what especially millennials want now. They want that engagement on their smartphone. So that looks, impressive to patients, and it's also what they want. They want that instant gratification of that text message right to their phone. So that's pretty cool.
And when you talk about millennials, they want things convenient. They feel like they should, and rightly so, be able to access their information anywhere. Right? They want, because they're used to that. They don't even think twice about that.
But even the presentation of information, like what you were saying, Eric earlier with not being able to find stuff on Dentrix, like so many cramped little
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
I think that is a big change in
Mhm.
technology as well, because up until a certain point, there was this view of information like the more the better.
Mhm.
But I think as we've gotten inundated with so
Mhm.
much information
Right.
the past decade, we started to realize it's more about the quality of the
Mhm.
information
What's
and
important,
yeah,
right?
and being able to find what you need, but not
Mhm.
necessarily have everything
Yes.
raining
Yes.
down on you, right? So that was a big part of our streamlining the
Mhm.
interface,
Mhm.
where we took out a lot of the clutter so that
Mhm.
when you are looking for something, it's really what you want to see.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that is the convenience
Mhm.
factor,
Mhm. Yeah,
because you don't
Now,
have
absolutely.
to scan so
is
much.
it customizable? Can a practice customize their, what they're looking at? Let's say, I do a lot of implants in my office, or let's say, we have a periodontist and an endodontist, but let's say it's a more heavy endo office. Um, can you customize certain parts of the software to your particular practice?
Yeah, there's definitely some customization. So
Hmm.
yes, yeah. And I think and this is where software gets tricky because I think everybody works a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is if definitely there's some customization and at the same time, if we have a whole group of clients that really nudges us like this is what we want to see,
Yeah.
where the beauty about having our own dev team and being very close with them is things can get done very,
Yep.
pretty quickly. Um, and the other thing too is as we're building in, we're talking about online scheduling. So sure, we can reach out to a vendor and that has done it and add it onto the software. And then
Hmm.
at the same time, we find out, a little like, oh, it might be easier you just put it in yourself because it's not that hard to do. And
Not
then
that hard to build, because right now there are so many. I mean, when you're developing something, you don't necessarily need to create something from scratch unless you're a pure R&D shop. Most of the things have already been created somewhere, and it's just a matter of pulling the best of what's out there into our creation.
Hmm.
And I think we're at a really good point because our team they're young, they're
Mhm,
fast,
mhm.
and they have a lot of experience. So when we're looking at things to add and things to implement, we get to go off of actual live feedback from our
Mhm,
clients.
mhm.
So people who are actually using it day in, day out get a say in what they want to see, which we think is really cool. Because when we were searching, that wasn't there.
Mhm.
I mean, with Dentrix, I mean, I don't know how many, I could rant about Dentrix for hours. So, um, I mean, you
Well,
could
I'm gonna
text
say,
message them. Go ahead.
I was gonna say SoftNet's not any better. So just, and yeah, and that's the thing is I think these companies have gotten so large, so
Yeah.
huge, have so much market share that perhaps it's,
They don't have
they
to,
they
yeah.
don't have to, and then it's no longer personal in a way where they care enough, right? Because now it's
Well,
like, what
I
was
could send them, feedback, every hour on the hour, and nothing would get done. I mean, they have so many thousands of users that for anything to get done, it would have to be such a majority of users that could make a change. Like I've been trying to on the chart because I do a lot of implants. I would love to be able to right click on that implant and have all the implant information
Mhm.
pop up, like the platform, the implant
That you're
company,
using,
the
yeah,
abutment, yeah.
yeah. Specific.
But certain things like will never get done in Dentrix. So that's pretty cool. Like you're a younger, growing company, and you want to hear that feedback, um,
And I just
and
took down your
make
notes
change.
of what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, I have
But I
like I
love
could
it.
go
I
on and
love
on.
it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, yeah. Because what you're
Um,
saying makes a whole lot of sense to us. Because if you want it, I'm pretty sure just about almost everybody out there who's placing an implant would want the same thing,
I
right?
have to go to the photos, then back to the chart, then back to the ledger to see when it was done, then back to that note to see what it's like like connect like a crime scene, like with the pins trying
Connect
to
the
figure
dots.
out like connect the dots. Yeah, I have like the little red push pins with the red string to trying to figure out when I place that implant. Um, so now are all these so you're going to be doing online scheduling soon, and I'm sure you're going to be, as a growing company, you're going to be adding a lot of these functionalities. Is that still part of the package? Like, am I going to have to pay more per each functionality you add, or is it going to be like a all-inclusive resort where I can, just show up to the buffet and eat? Like, it's all like part of the package.
Everything that we add that our team can do internally is going to be part of the package, because I mean, where would we be if we're not constantly innovating, right? But anything that we may have to partner up with somebody else to do, then it might be a conversation of, okay, how much are they charging in order to make it happen?
But we would try our very best to do everything where it's like when your phone is upgraded, it's part of it.
Right. Or like
so that is definitely our goal, because it's not your dentist. For us, it started in the dental office. And so we're not interested in nickel and diming the dentists out there, because we've seen so many people do that. And again, we don't want to see, dentists, especially the new ones that you're trying to help, Eric, where it's like layering platforms, third parties. And by the time you add it all up, they're paying a whole lot more. We want somebody that's brand new, be able to get a laptop, have a phone, and it's ready to go. Yeah. Forget the server costs, forget all of that.
Server's what, like $5,000-$7,000?
Yeah. So then
we have this enormous server that's just collecting dust under, and it's like, I mean, the thing is huge underneath one of the staff members' desks. So it'd be nice to.
I hope she's not super tall. Yeah, I hope she's not a tall person.
Well, it's like, I mean, when the fan goes off on that thing, it's like there's a helicopter, in the room. So what about support moving forward? Is that all included as well? Like you said, any software updates. But what if I'm having an issue? Because ultimately, like, I love technology when it works, but when it doesn't, I can barely screw in a light bulb. So I will be calling support for help. So how does that work? Is that included as well?
That's part of the on-demand support that we were talking about. We think, I mean, because at the end of the day, we care about the office being able to run really well. So it's one thing to have a program that works really well, but it's all about the implementation and how it's actually being used. So without good support, I don't think you can be a really strong software company, because there will always be something, whether it's I forgot how to do this, or I accidentally deleted that. It's just,
just
people
like
are people.
Yeah, and just like our clients, right? With any dentist, any good dentist and any good dental office, you want the patient to have a wonderful patient experience.
Right.
And it's no different, right?
Yeah, you're not going to be like, oh, we won't take your call about that filling because it was done over 2 years ago.
Right. I mean, what kind of experience would that be? These are our
it's all about that repeat business.
These are our clients. We care about them. I mean, if we're listening and what you said about Dentrix, we don't want somebody saying that about Asprodental, right? Like, you have it, but you're not happy, and you've been on with them for a long time. You've paid them a great deal of money over the years. Are they treating you the way you should be treated? Would we ever treat our patients who've been a patient of ours for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Would we ever treat our patients like that as dentists? And I think we would say, no way, absolutely not. And would they refer to us? Absolutely not. So we don't want to be a tech company. Asprodental wants to be a company the way dentists want to treat their patients for many, many generations. And to us, that's important. So.
Yeah, I think that's, it's just like you were saying, in patient care, you want to take care of that patient so they're happy. You want to offer them great customer service so they come back and they refer their friends. So it's, it's very similar to like a startup practice management software. But I also wanted to mention that, something new and exciting like this, like for me, going from taking, regular impressions to getting a digital scanner was like, it made me enjoy dentistry so much more, or
Yes.
going from paper film to digital x-rays. So something like this, you know, to get a new practice management software and get rid of an old dinosaur, you know, like a Dentrix or some of the older legacy systems, can be exciting and reinvigorating for the practice, the staff, the dentist. I mean, the dentist, you know, we go through, you know, such a day-to-day stressful job.
Monotonous
And
times, right?
yeah, and you want it to be, you want to go to work happy and something
Yeah.
exciting and new and efficient.
Yes.
So if a software like this can do that and make you enjoy your practice, make your staff happier, make things more efficient, and then I think it's a no-brainer. Um, so I would love to get a demo, or you could even for this, you know, the video portion of this podcast, we could even get some screenshots or maybe a little demo going at the end. Um, but before we, you know, wrap things up, any last nuggets or words of wisdom that you want to tell those young dentists out there, or about Asprodental?
I think
I think for me, it's about keep learning. You know, when you finish dental school, that's just the beginning. Be excited about the future because the future is wonderful. Continue to, and then focus on what you really want to do. And in the end, it's about the patient. You deliver the experience that you can very rarely do you get to create somebody's experience. And in a dental office, you truly can. You can curate the whole experience. And we started our offices from scratch. We did not have the luxury of buying. So way back when, it was one patient at a time, one front team office member, one dentist, and you grow through 3 generations, 4 generations later, because you always remember it's one patient at a time. Just like with us, with Asprodental, it's one client at a time. You make them happy and it spreads. So just, you know, keep learning, keep giving value, and keep giving those wonderful experiences. And I think as a young dentist today, oh, how fun and exciting. So
That's great advice. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining. I think
thank
that was
you. What you're doing is great. I mean, we really think what you're doing for the young dentists is wonderful. So thank you for doing that for the young dentists. Wish you were around when I was a young dentist too.
I know there's so many things that, you know, because I've been practicing almost 20 years, that I wish I knew, or I wish were around back then. But, you know, so that's why I, you know, having, you know, a young innovative company on, you know, like yourself, that can help young dentists is so important to help them and show them that, you know, they can really enjoy dentistry and give great patient care. But you know, it's a stressful job.
Yes.
But if you can get some technology, you know, like an Asprodental, that can make your job and your practice more efficient, then you're going to have more time to spend with patient care, and, you know, just in general be happier and less stress at the end. So again, I want to thank Tiffany Nguyen, Kimberly Nguyen from Asprodental. You can go to Deals for Dentists and get 30% off the implementation fees, 2 months of free subscription, and unlimited on-demand support. So that's great. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And let's be in touch maybe in the next 6 months or year and see what's new in your world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Likewise.
And we would love to, if you want your audience to see a demo, we'd love to come back, and you know, we'd love to be able to do that for them.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.